Bob McClure, former teacher and school principal. I've been here at Berwick 2 years now, nearly 2 years now, and my wife and I find it exactly the place where we want to be.
Yeah.
And that it was a much simpler world,
Yeah.
and in the sense that, for example, if there was a family, parents and had children, often the children were gone for most of the day, and very often I don't think the parents knew where they were, but they knew they were safe because the neighborhood was safe. So I would say that was a big difference. It changed the world in the sense that we had even faster communication with the rest of the world. So I would say that between now and when I was growing up, or we were growing up, this world seems to have got less secure, less stable, and moving a whole lot faster than we ever knew.
Yeah.
I think it's a dividing issue so much in Canada. In other countries maybe, but I feel in Canada we, as a population, have a pretty good understanding of what we need to do. And at the family level or at the personal level, we've all, especially if we live in cities, we've all been introduced to recycling and composting and so on like that. And through the press, the media, both TV and print media, and even on the web now, we have a greater understanding of what we discard is going to have an effect somewhere down the road. The other day in our local newspaper, there was a big article about the Heartland landfill we have near Victoria. And they are looking to the next 50 years to handle what we as a population discard. Of your question, which was between you, your age, and the rest of the people, say, in this room, I think what you're doing with this program is exactly the right thing you're doing. And I really encourage it to carry on and branch out even further. Get to know more of the residents here, because here in Berwick, for example, you've got a population that over the last 80 years, 75, 80 years, 90 years, has seen a lot of changes in the world. So you don't need to go out and stand on the street corner. Just have programs like this and everybody here involved, and even wider, greater number of residents, and I think you hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
I was at a science seminar here just last week, and I asked the speaker, is there hope in this world for the future? And I thought her answer was so good. She looked at me and she said, Bob, there is always hope. And I thought about that later. I thought, you're right. You are really right. If we don't have hope, we might as well just go out and bury ourselves and say, farewell, that's enough, done. But I think in hope, and your generation coming up, just as our parents thought our generation was going to do all the wonders for the world, and we didn't, and your generation, not all of you, will do all the wonders for the world, but there will be enough of you, I think, that take us further along the road we need to go. Well, from my perspective, I think you know an awful lot about Berwick already. By working in the dining room and being around with these sessions, talking to people who live here like you do, I am very, very much in awe of the students we see in this building. They look like they're enjoying life. They've all got projects they're working on, and they are so good to us. You know, I'll ask for something like, do you have any Worcestershire sauce? Well, yes, and a bottle appears. It's just, I'm just amazed. So I think if more of you keep coming here and Berwick goes on employing more of you, or just dropping in and having these sort of sessions, I think we're on the right road.
You mind just starting by introducing yourself like Bob did?
I'm Terry Dance-Spinnick, and I'm a resident here at Berwick, and I've been a college educator for years and an environmental activist for a very long time. I grew up in the 60s, so I was a 60s child, and I think what was common then, it was a the degree of ferment in society, because the Vietnam War was raging when I was growing up, and I was involved in the anti-war movement, and today you've got the Middle East war,
Yeah.
so some things don't change. But I remember really admiring Martin Luther King and the Black Panthers, and I was part of founding the women's liberation movement. But what the difference is that in those days there wasn't an environmental movement. Like Rachel Carson had written her book Silent Spring in the 60s, but the movement didn't really come until the 80s. And I remember reading The Fate of the Earth by Jonathan Schell in '85 and being totally shocked. I mean, it really freaked me out. But it ignited a commitment to Mother Earth, and I tried to carry that through in my career.
That's awesome.
To be honest, I think it stems from our economic system. We're a capitalist society where everything is for profit, money, consumerism, and it fosters competition as opposed to a more collaborative society. And I think, especially in Canada, what you do for a living shapes your beliefs. So people who are working in the forestry industry, tend to defend their industry, even though clear cutting's happening, because it's their job. Or people in the oil sands, same thing. Or the fishing in down east, the cod went extinct. So that's a hard conundrum to face. And I think the world is at a tipping point. We're already at 1.5 degrees, and they're forecasting 3 degrees by the end of this century. So for me, it's a question of when are we going to wake up? Is it going to take having our houses burned down or, tremendous violence?
Yeah.
I hope not. I would say more dialogue like this. This is super. And a two-way street. So we get to question you.
Yeah.
I don't have kids. So for me, I would be really interested in knowing what are your dreams, your worries, your anxieties. And I think ask us for help. Like, we know we'd like to raise money to help you go to Ottawa, that big trip. But what else can we do?
Yeah.
Want me to be honest?
Yes.
I would say I perhaps differ from Bob. I don't have a huge amount of hope. I fear that humanity's going to things are going to have to get worse before humans really wake up. But I have chosen to act on the basis of hope. And two little quotes that have inspired me is, the butterfly wings affecting the hurricane thousands of kilometers away. So we're all interconnected. And one little light can do wonders. I want you to know that we care about you. And we care about the planet. We're not a bunch of old people tucked away, just that we, our Elizabeth May is our MP. We've invited her. Our theater is always full when she comes, which says something about how we vote. We've organized all candidates meetings. We have a sustainability action plan with Berwick. And so I think you can be proud of us, and that we have things to share and to teach.
Okay, Roger, would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Roger Boudelier. I'm a Nova Scotian by birth. 68 years afterwards, I came to British Columbia and have spent my time here on the Saanich Peninsula. By profession, I was a high school teacher. My primary subject areas were the social studies and English, but I also, from time to time, picked up a few other courses as well to fill out my course load. Tremendously more complex now. As a Nova Scotian, for example, I can remember living in a very small C conservative society where values were not greatly challenged. In fact, in Nova Scotia, up until recently, about 1/3 of every dollar spent was provided by the federal government, either to armed forces, post office, or various other federal services. So Ottawa was a very friendly spot for us compared with some other provinces contemporarily today which challenge Ottawa's authority. It was a peaceful existence, and for example, American tourists flooded into the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia in the summer. They were very, very warmly welcomed. if you were to compare that to today's circumstances where you have a criminal at the head of the American government, and that's not being pejorative, that's being very, very straightforward and candid and factual. Today, Nova Scotians are much more skeptical, as well as they should be. I'll give you an example again from my small community back in Nova Scotia in the 1960s. In those days, the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer were one and the same. They were not split up, and effluent rainwater were discharged into the Annapolis River, where they mingled, floated downstream, and the next town or village down the river hoped that there was enough dilution that when they took water into their services, it wasn't going to create problems. So things have changed very dramatically in that regard. In a word, greed. I think that people are not prepared to face the reality that what may be good for them may not be good for all. And so many people are prepared to either put their head in the sand or turn their back and not put the common good first. If we were to do that, we would be prepared to sacrifice. To sacrifice is pretty much a dirty word today. I believe now people are in essence out for themselves, not the common good. The program that we're participating in right now is an excellent one. I used to be involved in Nova Scotia in my teaching days in a program called Call to Remembrance. And in that program, which focused on 100 years of war and peacekeeping by Canadians, the Legion members idolized the youngsters who took an interest in what they had done 50 or more years ago. Yes, well, I do, and I think if we don't, then that's a sad comment on us, and we essentially, metaphorically speaking, jump off the bridge and see ourselves drift downstream. There's much that can be done, and it's up to each of us to find that special niche or areas in which we feel confident, we have a special interest and a desire to participate, to hopefully inspire others to develop a sense of gratitude, a sense of respect, and a sense of responsibility for the future. I would like to know, but perhaps to be a little less facetious, that there is quite a strong coterie of people and a willingness here to support ambitions and projects that those students might have. I'm particularly keen to take to the streets myself. I'm an avid agitator, advocate, and I'll give you one example. Over the course of 8 sorties, 4 of them what I like to call homestands on local turf, and 4 outside of this immediate area, I've been parading for a period of time, holding a sign, one side of which says Trump equals treachery, and the other side of which equals, with a bow to our dual language of Canada, en garde Canada, dual Trump.
Yes, my name is Sheila Levy, and I'm new to Berwick. I've only been here a week, but I find it a very friendly, accepting place. And I found a lot of soulmates here too. I would describe myself as a feminist, an environmental activist. I've been active in the environment for a long, long time. My grandkids can never say I haven't tried. I have taught at different levels of education in different countries like Africa. And I taught for quite some time in the local Victoria School District and led Gordon Head School to become an Earth School with 1,000 group projects. And in the 60s, I worked with 3 or 4 hippies to start recycling in this area. So that was the very first in Victoria, which was good.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot freer. As children, we had complete freedom. You could go for the day as long as you got home for supper at night. And it was a global village, really. People I grew up after the war, and people accepted responsibility for each other. And if you dropped a piece of paper on the floor or the ground when you were outside, someone told you to pick it up. You couldn't do that these days, you got sued. Yeah, so it was a freer, more carefree childhood that we had. That's very difficult, and I agree with Roger. It's greed. I think it's the nature of human beings to want comfort. Throughout history, we've tried to make our lives more and more comfortable, and it's never been as comfortable as it is now, from material points of view anyway. And I think we have much more than we need. And personally, I try not to fly. I don't think that is necessary. I had a perfectly good life as a kid, and I never flew until I was about 16.
Yeah.
And it's, it's very, very polluting. And we've got to face the fact that these are very difficult times, very dangerous times, and we've got to cut back. There's no other way for it. We've got to do with less.
Yeah.
I don't know about that because I'm on the executive of the local Green Party.
Yeah.
I'm a member of Seniors for Climate Action now. I'm a member of Elders for Old Growth. I've been in Fairy Creek. Now, there are a lot of young people in Fairy Creek, but for organizations, it's very hard to get young people involved. This has been my experience, and I think the experience of many people. I'm not sure why it is, but if you take voting, it's the older demographics that are voting, not the younger ones. Your generation, and slightly older than you, are not voting. And there are reasons for that.
Yeah.
But it's very dangerous because a democracy needs people to vote. Personally, I don't have that much hope, but you can't give up hope. If you give up hope, that's it. You've got to keep on going. And that's why I'm involved environmentally. I occasionally break down and have a weep because I'm so concerned that we have divorced ourselves from nature. And that is the problem. That is one problem. And the other problem is our economic system, neoliberalism. After the war, it was great. All the social services that were brought in Britain were very, very helpful. Not much yet, because I'm only here for 6 days. But I came in because I broke my Achilles tendon and I was in a wheelchair. And my husband's no longer alive, so it was very difficult. And I look at this as a place of refuge because I could break my Achilles again. And it's not pleasant in a wheelchair on your own. Mm-hmm. So I see it as a very positive, supportive environment that is available. Yeah.
I'm Joe Artepies. Lived at Berwick for 3.5 years. I was a civil servant in Canada, federal government, for 40 years, and loved being here. Well, I looked at it through environmental viewpoint, and to me, the biggest thing that I saw was we clearly reused things more often, from the extent of people, like we reused the laundry soap.
Yeah.
You had washing machines that would pump out the soapy water and keep it in a tub.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then the rinse cycle would go through and dump that out, and then when you put a new load in, it would suck back in the laundry water and use that.
Actually.
Yeah, so that sort of stuff, I came from a large family. We had to share bath water, those sorts of things, and reuse other ways. I don't think there was a kitchen around that didn't have a bacon fat tin beside the stove, because you saved all that, and you didn't have another alternative. On the pure recycle side, there was a little bit. Beer and pop bottles were recycled. Beyond that, there wasn't very much. I really struggle to understand that, because the science, what we're seeing in the world, should make it so obvious to everybody that there are issues here we have to deal with. I think part of the challenge is that there's so much information out there, people could choose what information they want, and
Yeah.
they believe the pseudoscience stuff out there, or,
Exactly.
somebody gets on a chat line that debunks real science and comes up with a sillier answer.
Yeah.
I think the biggest way is you have to talk to seniors
Yeah.
and seniors for you guys is everybody, over 25. So it's, and you have to do it whenever you can, whether it's riding the bus and you sit down beside somebody,
Yeah.
it's easy to it's comfortable to become isolated
Yeah.
and sit with your iPhone.
Exactly.
But to sit down beside somebody and find out where you're going today, why are you doing that, what did you do for work? Well, I think I do have hope, because I think man has an almost infinite ability to adapt and innovate and stuff like that. But at the same time, I do believe things are going to get a lot worse before they get better.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to take some time before we can force governments and people to make the changes that are going to be required to move us forward. So yes, I believe, but it's there's going to be some dark clouds.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Berwick has a strong core of people who do care about the environment and do care about doing stuff, but at the same time, you see a large group of them at the same time who don't want to deal with challenges anymore. They looked at, I've lived my life and I don't want to worry about things anymore. That's for somebody else to solve.
Yeah.
And I think you find that here, but you'll also find that in the general population.
Yeah, exactly.
Where people are out there, they're focused on getting through the day and they don't want a bigger challenge. So that's going to be I guess what I'm trying to say is, what at Berwick we can represent a larger group, but we're certainly willing to talk to
Yeah.
you and listen to what you have for the future and what needs to be done.
Certainly. I'm Bonnie Jean Devine, and I'm a resident here at Berwick. I was born and raised in Ottawa in a veteran settlement, which I'd like to talk about a bit later. I've lived in Alberta and BC, and my profession was always to do with some kind of education. Well, for me, that was the toughest question. So I don't really have any answers. I think we need to focus more on the things we have in common. I think everyone agrees they want to save the planet. We don't want to destroy it. We don't like the hurricanes and the forest fires and all the other things that are coming with this climate change. But I think where we disagree and where some of the division may be is in how do we fix it? And are we willing to put the resources into it to make changes? For me, it sounds like a platitude or a slogan, but I think the young people are the hope. That's what gives me hope. I don't have any grandchildren. I do have 2 sons, but no grandchildren. And so for me, it's been delightful to get to know the students from Claremont. And you certainly give me hope. I think there's a bit of fear involved there. I think that some of the young people are afraid to approach an older person, especially if it's not a family member or a friend. But I've also heard from seniors who say, I don't know how to relate to the young people. I don't know what to talk to them about. And actually, one of the ladies I thought I could convince to volunteer and come and do this interview was scared because she can't talk to her grandson. And so she was like, I don't know how I'm going to relate to them. That was after the Second World War. The government bought up large pieces of land. Most of them were farms, and they put in the streets and the waters and sewer, and that was an option for the veterans coming home. They could have their tuition paid for if they wanted to go to university, they could have a cash package, or they could get a half an acre of land to build their homes. And I moved in, I was 4 years old when our house was finished in one of those veteran settlements. And yeah, so it was, I guess, just a very different way of getting a home and getting started. And those settlements happened all across Canada as well.
My name is Guy van Uitven. I was born in Belgium in 1938. I'm a electric power system consultant. You could say retired, but I'm still, as a consultant, you never retire. My last job was six years ago, so at 82. So, yeah, so that's what I do. The gap between yourselves and grow up. It will come in with time, you know. There's no problem.
What do you want Claremont to know about you?
I'm not sure. It's you should ask people what do they want to know about me.
Yeah.
Well, actually, my situation is, I guess, slightly different from the people you heard before, because my father and mother, they were married in New York, and they were both Belgians, but my mother contracted TB, and then she had to come back to Belgium, and I was born 16 months. When I was 16 months, my mother died. So after that, having been through the war in Belgium, no food and things like that, first my father put me in a kind of a orphanage for some time, because he couldn't take care of me while trying to make a living. So then afterwards, I explored a lot, walked a lot. There are not many sports activities in those days in Belgium after the war. So I walked a lot through the cities. I spent a lot of time in libraries, which was good because that helped me stay on top of my class. Basically life was like that, you know. It's not much to say.
Great.
We had a good, in 2015, there were 196 nations that came together in Paris to discuss climate change, and they signed an agreement which is called the Paris Accords. 2015, there were 196 countries that signed on to the agreement. Yeah. So things were, you know, they had the goal of aiming for 1.5 degrees centigrade temperature rise in poverty pre-industrial levels. And then eventually, if they couldn't reach it, let's stop at 2 degrees max. So the world was in agreement with that. What changed is Trump, you know, he came in, he rejected all the renewable energies, no more solar, no more wind power, drill baby drill, you know, get the fossil fuels out of the ground. Yeah. And of course, now with the stupid war that he started, the Hormuz passage is closed, people have no oil and so forth, so they started to burn more and more coal. Yeah. There's more and more coal, which is the worst thing that can happen to CO2 production. But that's the situation it was, which is we live now.
What needs to happen in Canada to get everyone thinking about where their energy is coming from and what?
Well, I think people know where the greenhouse gases come from. You know, they know it's from fossil fuels and so forth. That doesn't mean that you have to banish everything like that from one day to the next. For instance, natural gas is much less than half as severe as coal. So if you can replace coal by natural gas, it's a big step forward already. And most of the natural gas is produced in Asia, by the way. Yeah. That's where most of the coal burning is happening. Yeah. I hope for the future, for sure. You know, I think we, having lived a long time, we are just in this moment in time where you have Trump. Yep. Trump, in two years, he will be gone, and everything will come back to normal in terms of everybody will agree, okay, we have to stop producing natural gases. Yeah. Renewable energy is going to take over the world, that's for sure. I have no doubt in my mind. Yeah. It's a good question, you know. I think Canada is going to try to exploit its natural resources, for sure, you know, and as I say, natural gas is, although it's a fossil fuel, in Europe it's not considered like in Europe it's considered green energy, by the way, natural gas. So if you can send out natural gas to Asia and see them diminish their use of coal, that will be a positive thing.
All right, thank you very much.